is Nicky Goulimis, and I'm the former co-founder of Nova Credit and current co-founder of Tunic Pay. Nova Credit is a cross-border credit bureau. So we enable immigrants and in fact, actually the thin file population more broadly to access financial products, whether that be borrowing, so student loans, credit cards, or things like apartments. The ability to rent an apartment or to get a credit product can be really challenging when you're not from the same country, you have no financial identity. And so we solve that by building financial identities across borders, working with financial institutions like American Express, HSBC, telco companies like Verizon, as well as property managers like Yardi. So Tunic Pay is my newest business. So this is a little hot off the press, but we work on tackling scams and social engineering. And we do that by building recipient intelligence, effectively understanding if the other side of a transaction is a mule or a fraudster. Yes, of course. So I'm a loud and proud part of the Greek diaspora. So I'm Greek myself. I guess right now I live in London. I previously lived in the States, but I'm on the board of a Greek company, Alas Direct. I did some work with the Greek government on the innovation front around IP. And actually, I just came back from Greece yesterday. I'm there very often. I have lots of family and friends there. I didn't grow up in Greece, I should mention. So I grew up here. So I don't have a point of view on leaving the country in order to be successful. And certainly, my own engagement with Greek tech, I've done a little bit of angel investing in Greece as well. I see like lots of fantastic founders and companies being built there. So I wouldn't want to make a normative statement. I, however, don't happen to live in Greece. I would love to, maybe one day, but not right now. So obviously I work in fintech. Both of the companies I've started have been in fintech. I see tremendous opportunity there. I think things like the Viva Wallet exit have created a ton of amazing talent. And then combined with things we see in more of the cybersecurity space, I think there's just a lot of talent there to be leveraged. I think at a broader level, the Greek government and its people have done a lot to modernize the infrastructure and the opportunities, whether that is around things like IP ownership, tax regimes, most recently visas for technical talent. So I don't know that I would see it as sector specific. I think there's been a sort of history of outsourcing components of development and so forth to Greece, but I think I now see just like more and more innovation and galvanism, mirrored by some of the work that you guys have done on just like how much more funding there is there in addition to talent. I'm very much in support of tech visas, and I'm in support of them. I think at a global scale, I think every study on innovation has demonstrated the link between innovation and immigration, the ability to attract human capital. I think equally every study has shown that when you stop immigration, you do not actually create more local jobs. In fact, you end up with mechanization or other dynamics. So generally, I'm very supportive of all visas that enable talent to go there. And then I think, I've been an employer now in a couple of different geographies, both the US and the UK, and the ability to bring in talent and bring in quickly and fairly and get great people is at all times either the first or the second concern of any business leader. And so, like literally today we are talking about at my company, how can we hire a few of these roles where we found great people? And so I think a government doing that is fantastic and a huge support to those startups. I think, one of the beauties of the smaller tech ecosystem in Greece is I think there's like a real emphasis on early support and mutual support. I think all of the founders, know each other or have met each other in some context. I think a lot of the investors are the same. And so I think that spirit of a little bit of underdog mentality, but also like let's prove ourselves and help each other is really, really strong. And I think angel investment in other places can often be like just a form of social currency almost. It's like, oh, okay, here's a huge portfolio. But I feel like people there really, really engage with their companies. I've seen that. I've been super thrilled with that. I think there is also a sense of nationalism to it. I think people want to not only build great companies, but they want to demonstrate the potential that their countries have. And then I think, obviously that, this feels so evident to say, but there is building a company in Greece because the consumer market remains fairly small. And to some extent, this dynamic exists in the UK as well, where you can't just focus on serving the UK market, but it's more pronounced in Greece. entrepreneurs are building global from the very beginning. Whereas I think in a market like the US, because of how big the economy is, you don't have to have as many of those considerations. So you see a lot of entrepreneurs, who are going to multiple cities, building teams internationally very quickly. But I think it's a really exciting time in Greece. I think there's like a lot of optimism there in ways that maybe in other markets now there's just like a little bit more cynicism too. So I think in terms of improvements I would make to the Greek tech ecosystem, I think there does remain a gap in the super high risk early stage type of financing. So when there is maybe a team, an idea, and not much else, I think those stages are very hard for companies still to attract capital. I think it's easier at the, I think, as the seed and Series A funding has grown, maybe sort of and I never quite know the distinction between pre-seed and seed. It feels like a little bit of a investor construct to negotiate terms. But, let's say the sort of pre-seed is, pre-product, pre-any customers. It does feel like that stage remains really hard for companies to attract capital because people want more de-risking, which puts more onus on entrepreneurs and then also makes it harder for groups to get started, to take that leap. And so I'd love to see a little bit more focused, especially on the really, really early stage. I think there's been like tremendous initiatives around diversity in Greek tech, but I think I'm very proud to be a woman in tech with all the baggage that comes with that label. But I think, there's a lot of initiatives to try and get more women founders, more women in tech in general. But I think, perhaps some of that early funding gap could also address some of those dynamics. Greece is a very different country than the UK insofar as like Greece's history has always been highly shaped by its diaspora. Sorry, I don't mean to be like, here's a reductive history lesson, but more just that, like the Greek War of Independence was largely financed by the Greek diaspora and highly engaged in. And then our early prime ministers spent time overseas, then came to Greece to build the country. And so I think Greece has had a very symbiotic relationship with Greeks abroad. And so it's very welcoming to it. I consider myself like very privileged to still get to engage a lot in Greece despite not living there full time. Yeah, I think there's a lot of openness to that. I think, perhaps it's important for also the Greek diaspora to tread lightly in doing that, to do so in ways that are productive and respectful. And that's why, I think I mentioned to you earlier, like I don't want to come in here and make blanket statements about how another country should run itself when I don't live there. I'm keen to be a contributor, but I think there's a balance to that role. I think Greece has so much to offer. There's amazing talent. I think that's the thing I did want to just stress is like there's a real sense of dynamism, that this is a moment in Greece's history. The economy is booming, doing incredibly well. I'm sure you've seen that, it was a Economist highlight of last year and so forth. So I think that, there are challenges, of course. I don't mean to be narrow-minded in how I look at it or not be seeing some of the challenges in being in a smaller economy and an economy that's still modernizing aspects of it. But I think there's a lot of sense of dynamism. And then, Greece has an incredible climate, culture, and is a fantastic place to live. At a pure metrics level, I think Greece has had some terrific exits recently, which have been very inspiring. I think I would like to see more exits, but frankly, like more rocket ship exits. There's been a lot of exits that have been many, many decades of hard grind. And I think there are many like Greek companies right now that I can see that I could see a path to a faster, a big IPO exit, et cetera. And I think it'd be really exciting and galvanizing for people to see just like the potential that software and technology and hardware have to have this massive growth rate. And so I'd love to see that realized in a company versus, I think right now there's probably a pricing unfairness to the dynamics that occur. And then I think at a more sort of abstract level, I think there is a lot of fantastic B2B tech, deep tech, fintech, of course, which I'm really proud of. But I think I would love to see like consumer tech or tech that grapples with some of the issues that are present day to day. I think we find ourselves at a time where there's a lot of debate about technology vis-a-vis democratic systems, technology vis-a-vis costs of labor and valuing things. And so I'd love, Greece has such an amazing history around democracy, around innovation. And so I'd love to see things that grapple with some of the social issues of our time. So right now we are focused on tackling scams and social engineering. We build software for banks. We're doing that predominantly in the UK, but it's actually a really interesting time for us where we've just seen a ton of demand in Europe, but also in Brazil and Australia. So we're really focused on, I think, starting to take this international. And frankly, I'm very excited to get to bring some of this technology to Greece. I'm going back there in 10 days. I'm going to spend some time with some of the bank CEOs. And, I think we see this global rise of real-time payments, of the ability to move money instantly and seamlessly. And across Europe, things like SEPA Instant are now gaining adoption and usage, but those payments also need to be protected. And so I think, it's a great opportunity for us to get involved in doing that.